In 1971, a competition in Paris, France was held with the goal to design a plan that reflected new modes of architectural thinking which destabilized the tradition of the machine present in architecture of the time. The finalist team, consisting of Renzo Piano, Richard Rogers, and others, composed a design that was commissioned by the President of France himself, Georges Pompidou. The architects pushed to install a sense of fun and culture instead of simply building a container for art, while still being an informative tool. The Centre Pompidou was and is not just a monument. It is linear, flexible, functional, and can fill multiple purposes. President Pompidou himself saw the building as a dynamic tool of communication that was capable of attracting the largest possible audience and overcame the limitations traditionally imposed on culture by institutions. Piano and Rogers claim to have constructed Centre Pompidou through postmodernist practices with the use of color and playfulness. However, the outcome of the complex is more conceptually representative of the modernist approach to architecture. The structure itself is constructed of modern materials, maintains simplicity while showing exploration and experimentation, and overall incites a utopianism commonly tied to modernity. The building contains roughly 75,000 square feet of free space, sectioned throughout 5 stories, and each floor extends through the building, uninterrupted by the load-bearing structures. The continuity of space opens up each individual level and allows for a simplistic construct. All the inner workings of the building are displayed on the outside rather than being built within the walls, creating such spaces that are unobstructed by essential structural elements. These expanses of space enable the possibilities for different forms of recreation and work today to display art and hold exhibitions. The outside facade and the inner walls are known for having vibrant streaks of color running across, representing different ideals. For example, the blue represents the circulation of air from the air conditioning, whereas the yellow represents circulating energy or electricity coming from light fixtures. Although in the making the use of color was meant to reflect postmodernism, the color codes were very modern and experimental for their time. The heavy use of exposed steel and glass, investigational use of color, and the simplicity of large open spaces succeed greater in producing a modernist project rather than a postmodernist one. The building is experimental and utopian, emphasizing a new space-time experience, and was designed as both a flexible container and a dynamic communication mechanism. It exemplifies the modernist idea of creating a machine to be experienced. A unique space-time experience is the key idea in modernist architecture and was portrayed in the museum itself as a movement. Piano described it as not as a building, but a town where you find everything: lunch, great art, a library, great music, etc. This was a different approach to architecture at the time, but separate from postmodernism, producing a sense of vitality and prosperity into an area that desperately required it. The program of social-cultural reorganization was a perfect example of what the residents needed. This idea is further explored by leaving half of the site open for the public use for events and gatherings. Experimentation, simplicity, and utopian life are the expressive keys of modernism and are prevalent within Centre Pompidou. The building is a technological advancement showcasing the priorities of simplicity. Though the center is full of modernist concepts, one could argue that it best represents postmodernism. According to Robert Venturi, in his Complexity and Contradiction in Architecture, postmodernism is hybrid, distorted, ambiguous, inclusive, and allows for multiple and layered meanings. The center definitely exemplifies these characteristics quite clearly through its expansive multi-use spaces, yet the building more so shows a strong ideal for modern simplicity over postmodernist ambiguity. One could also argue that the complex array of tubes, pipes, and structure on the exterior could be considered ornamentation. According to Adolf Loos, ornament is a crime. Modernist ideas stand in stark contrast with any type of embellishment. Although the vibrancy of color amongst the exterior and interiors can be seen as decor, it further expresses the experimentation which is valued within modern architecture. Additionally, it could just as easily be argued that the visible external structure exemplifies the modernist idea of exposing materials as they are, rather than covering them up with facade or embellishment. Modernism is pure, exclusionary, simple, straightforward, articulated, and designed, and such colors represents the elementary diagrammatic layout. Even though the Centre Pompidou has many characteristics of postmodernism, it still better represents modernist architecture through its simplicity, experimentation, machine-like design, and unique spatial prioritization. The Centre Pompidou stands as a monument and one of the most striking pieces of modern architecture in Paris. Visually, the complex is simple in spatial arrangement and is extremely straightforward in strategies used. The use of modern materials and technology has enabled a revitalization to the area surrounding it, bringing millions of visitors every year and giving life to the community. It is a place where the public can gather, attend events, and simply enjoy their time in the space. It has earned the descriptions a democratic place for all people, a centerpiece of regenerated quarter of the city, and an antithesis of existing cultural monuments.